of Code Pink Congress with Medea Benjamin. I co-host that with Medea and Cole twice a month. And I'm also the chair of the Peace in Ukraine Coalition. Again, MAPA is involved with that, as is Code Pink, Veterans for Peace, World Beyond War, Roots Action, Progressive Democrats of America, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, DSA International. So a lot of organizations are involved in this effort to end the war in Ukraine. And our session is Opportunities for Progress. So I'm really excited to have the following people as presenters: Reverend Liz Theoharis of the Poor People's Campaign, Sandy Eaton of Mobilizing Nurses and Frontline Health Workers, Broadening Our Reach, Code Pink, Medea Benjamin, and Next Steps, Cole Harrison. So let's start with Reverend Liz Theoharis. What do you see as opportunities for progress? 4 minutes for each of you, and then we'll have a discussion.
Well, thanks so much. It's great to be with everybody, and what a powerful group of people that are here. I'm just going to get right into it. As folks here may know, and others may not, the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, is a grassroots movement made up of those that are most impacted by racism, by poverty, by ecological devastation, the denial of healthcare, this militarized society and war economy we're living in, and this false moral narrative of religious nationalism. And we have been organizing for more than 5 years. We launched about 5 years ago, in the spirit of Reverend Dr. King and the welfare rights leaders and others who had called for a Poor People's Campaign more than 50 years ago. We said in 2017, 2018, that we needed to build a grassroots movement from the below, in order to be able to kind of right the wrongs of the society. Now, we are organized in almost 40 states across the country. We represent tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. We have a reach of millions and tens of millions of people. And we really believe that power concedes nothing without a demand and without the kind of power and organizing of the people. And so I think when we're talking about where are we going from here, how are we going to make a peaceful world possible, we want to suggest and have benefited greatly from partnering with so many of the folks that are in the organizations that have called for this, and that are involved in this peace and justice movement, that we need to build a movement, and we're doing so together. Now, I know that a lot of realities, a lot of statistics have been shared throughout this conference, and so I just want to talk a little bit about the connection between these evils of racism and poverty and militarism, and why, therefore, the Achilles heel, as Dr. King suggested, of this kind of world mad with war and poverty and racism is to unite and organize those at the bottom, and then pull in people from all walks of life in society to be able to kind of right the wrongs. And so we, in the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, have chronicled the demands of grassroots leaders. We've also looked at the kind of problems of the realities of the kind of depth of injustice, and seen that, we have 140 million people in the United States, the richest country in the world, who are poor or are a couple hundred emergency away from absolute economic ruin. We have fewer voting rights today than we did, decades and decades ago, and we are closer, as everyone here is so aware, to war, and to in fact nuclear war, than we've been in generations. And these kind of evils and injustices, didn't happen overnight, and it will take deep organizing to be able to undo them. But that's exactly what we're trying to do. We launched the Poor People's Campaign back in 2018 with the largest wave of nonviolent civil disobedience in the 21st century. We've gathered and presented a budget where we talked about, cutting the military budget in half in front of the House Budget Committee. We have, organized the largest online gathering of poor and low-income people, and gathered this past June over 100,000 people in person and millions online for a mass poor people and low-wage workers assembly, a moral march on Washington and to the polls, and have kept on kind of building this grassroots power. And I think to me, what I want to emphasize the most in the remaining minute I have or whatever is the power of organizing. If we're going to talk about where do we go from here, how do we kind of organize, how do we win, we have to organize, we have to organize, we have to educate, and we have to build the compelling power to make those in power in our society all across the world actually give in to the demands of the people. And so, I want to invite folks here into the work that is going on. I know people here are very involved in all kinds of powerful work, but it's going to take more of what we're doing, and it's going to take reaching out and touching hundreds of thousands, millions of people, and showing to folks that this false narrative that's out there that blames poor people and blames people of color and immigrants, for all of the world's problems. This false narrative that has a nation fighting nation and people and community fighting community. This false narrative that says that peace somehow is only possible through nuclear proliferation and more conflict and war, and this false narrative that says this is as good as it gets. We should just, it might be unfortunate that we have conflict. It might be not the best thing that we have the level of poverty and economic insecurity, but this is as good as it gets. And what we have to say and what we're trying to build the power to show is no. We have the possibility of doing something better and bigger, and so let's do that all together as we organize. And so again, we're organized in 40 states across the country. There are coordinating committees that are made up with tens of thousands of people that are connected, and we need to build this kind of power from the bottom up.
Yes, thank you so much, Reverend Liz Theo-Harris of the Poor People's Campaign, co-director. All right, moving on to Sandy Eaton. She's with Mobilizing Nurses and Frontline Health Workers. Sandy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Reverend Liz. I just value what you said, because that's exactly what we need. How do we get into that? Back in 1996, Bill Clinton gave the keynote speech to the annual meeting, the biennial meeting convention of the American Nurses Association. And he got through his let's reform healthcare and all of that speech, which none of the delegates really wanted to listen to. And after he left, one of the nurse delegates took the mic on a point of personal privilege. And with tears in her eyes, she talked about the devastation of this country's public health infrastructure. This is then. Neoliberal austerity had been hitting, certainly even before Reagan, but between Reagan and Clinton and others, we were devastated. And at the same time, as the neoliberal market fundamentalism was marching forward, destroying our lives, the neocons, neoconservatives, a greater and greater influence. Those of us that grew up during the McCarthy period and lived through the whole first Cold War should know better than to be sucked into the war propaganda and the lies, particularly the Washington Post, the New York Times, and just repeating all over again. And those that say that it's impossible to sit down with a madman like President Putin and negotiate. We can't listen to that. When a few weeks ago, Representative Jayapal brought a letter signed by a number of members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and others to the White House, that was batted down within 24 hours. It's easy to get very frustrated, but we need to renew our fight to turn this country around. And we also have to be sensitive to what the folks in the global South think about these crazy Europeans killing each other off, and the military and NATO as basically it's a collective of the former colonial powers who still consider Africa their backyard. I think looking at this from a global perspective, I think we're wizened quite a bit. Right now, the Republican Party promotes fascism. The Democratic Party promotes war. We need to build the united front against austerity, against war, against racism, and against fascism. And it's only through not only aligning all of our organizations as we've tried to do through this conference, but also getting down to the grassroots, to the rank and file. How do we get folks who are fighting around, for example, expanded and improved Medicare for everybody, a basic social democratic advance? How do we see, how do we raise with those that we're fighting alongside of the urgency that we need to, in order to survive, we as a species need to deal with climate collapse, the threat of that, and nuclear winter, the threat of that. It's survival that we're talking about of ourselves as a species. Being white in North America or Europe is not a protection against that. It would be a global catastrophe. So we all have to find ways to work together. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy Eaton of Mobilizing Nurses and Frontline Health Workers. Next, we have Medea Benjamin, my colleague at Code Pink. She's going to speak to broadening our reach.
Well, first, let me say, when I heard about this conference, I thought, oh no, hours and hours talking about nuclear weapons. But I must say, I am super energized by this conference. And I see that we have so many more tools that I didn't really realize were all in the mix for us to use. I mean, hearing from the nurses, and thank you, Sandy, and knowing that there are so many healthcare workers that really understand these connections, having that housing connection was so powerful. And Liz, I'm so thankful to you and the Poor People's Campaign and Reverend Barber for the incredibly moving sermon that he gave around Christmas time, calling for the Christmas truce. And many of us were very moved by the Archbishop today. And it's funny because I'm not religious and I found it really, really powerful. And I think that this voice of the faith-based community is so critical for us. When we first wanted to get people to sign on to a Christmas truce with the Fellowship of Reconciliation, we thought it would be great if we got 100 faith-based leaders. And within a couple of weeks, we got over 1,500. And so we can really build on that. The other thing that I think was really important that came out today is understanding all the levels that we have to work on in terms of working in universities and getting more young people involved in divesting in their universities, then going into the citywide level and how people can push for divestment citywide, how there are state campaigns that are in formation now to abolish nuclear weapons, to call for that at the statewide level, and how we have this incredible tool at the international level, which is the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and the fact that 68 countries have already ratified it, and that this is supposed to be the law of the land, I think gives us, incredible momentum as we go forward. And going forward, I see several things each month in the coming months. We have with the Peace in Ukraine Coalition, we have Valentine's Day coming up February 14th, Have a Heart and War and Nuclear Weapons. We have a call for the anniversary of the invasion on February 24th, that whole week to be doing activities. There's going to be a very interesting activity February 19th in Washington, D.C., called for by the People's Party and the Libertarian Party, and in its attempt to get people of different ideologies together on this, and we'll see how that goes, but it should be a very interesting one in Washington. And then we have International Women's Day coming up March 8th, where we're trying to get women's organizations, women's groups, and just women around the world to stand up and say, as was the original call for International Women's Day, time to end war. And then after that, we have Earth Day, when it's going to be so important that we bring the issues of environmental devastation and the wars and the possibility of nuclear war together. So I just also was moved by hearing Congressman McGovern, and I especially liked when he admitted that Congress is not in the vanguard, that Congress is the caboose, and that, Reverend Liz, like you said, we at the grassroots are the ones in the vanguard because we have to move this train along. We are the engine. And I think, unfortunately, for this horrific war in Ukraine, it does give us an opportunity that we haven't had, which is that a lot of people are talking now about nuclear war or asking about nuclear war. I've been traveling around on a 50-city tour with my book, War in Ukraine, with my co-author, Nicholas Davis. And we've been speaking to a lot of universities, and students really are interested for the first time in learning about what is nuclear winter, what is nuclear war about, what happened in the 1962 nuclear missile crisis with Cuba. So it's a time that people are more open to hearing about these issues. And so I just want to end by revising something that Martin Luther King said. He said, those who love peace must organize as effectively as those who support war. And I would say we have to organize more effectively because we don't have the billions of dollars. We don't have the mainstream media in our power. We have to use the power of the grassroots and the power knowing that sometimes when we feel marginalized in this country, to keep recognizing that we do represent the global majority that are so anxious to live in a world of peace, a world of cooperation, a world of love, and that is the world we are moving to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Medea. And next up, we have the Executive Director of Massachusetts Peace Action, that's Cole Harrison. And Cole, perhaps after you speak, we could share the Peace in Ukraine website, a few things that might be helpful for moving forward.
You muted, Cole.
So, yeah. Okay, so what is wrong with this? Okay, is that shared? Okay, so it falls to my lot to propose a bunch of action steps after today. First, continue the work of your breakout. We held 17 breakouts today. Each one represents an organizing opportunity. You met with people that are interested in the same opportunity that you are. Be in touch with them. Continue working together. Contact your breakout convener and recorder if you haven't got the information about your other people. Okay, now with some specifics. Relevant congressional legislation. We have a resolution from Rep. McGovern on Back from the Brink and the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Senator Markey has announced that he will reintroduce the HALT Act, which calls effectively for a new nuclear freeze. Eleanor Holmes Norton will introduce her bill to end nuclear weapons production and switch the funds to address the climate emergency. Rep. McGovern also mentioned that bill. And we think that Senators Markey, Warren, and Rep. Lieu will refile their no first use bills. We haven't got specific confirmation of that yet. You can also file bills in state legislatures. In Massachusetts, we have filed bills, a bill to divest the state pension fund from companies that make nuclear weapons. We have introduced a resolution to support Back from the Brink. We have sorry, this slide wasn't properly formatted. We have introduced a resolution to form a citizens commission to plan the transition away from making nuclear weapons towards green technologies in Massachusetts, and one to make federal and state spending decisions more transparent. We are happy to work with people from other states, which are many other activists have ideas for legislation in their states. Let's share those ideas and spread them around. We can move the money, recruit national organizations that represent constituencies which need the funds currently being wasted on war. For example, teachers, nurses, service employees, environmental and climate groups, housing groups. We can do this also at the local and state level. We can join those coalitions that are campaigning on issues such as housing, healthcare, education, and against climate change. And when we join the coalitions, we can bring in the position that to finance these needs, we should cut the war budget. And finally, we can connect with communities of faith and call on them, as Medea was saying, to take positions against nuclear deterrence and nuclear war threats. We need education and analysis. We need, several speakers touched on the point that we need to educate beyond the peace movement. The broad public needs to understand that U.S. militarism and empire are a source of many of our problems. and we need to develop and popularize a deeper analysis. The TPNW is a huge opportunity. 68 states have ratified it. We can use those states to bring pressure on the nuclear weapon and nuclear umbrella states. Their second meeting of the TPNW states parties will take place at the UN at the end of November and early December. There will probably be some major events around that time. We and our colleagues have to plan those events, but there will be perhaps a public street action and perhaps a peace conference to bring many movement leaders together that will be there for the TPNW conference anyway. We need to roll back the new Cold War. We've been talking about the Ukraine war. We need to press for a ceasefire, negotiations to end it. Marcy is chair of the Peace in Ukraine Coalition. I'm on the steering committee. Join that coalition. I think we have more than 400 activists on our list already and growing. And we work together to exchange ideas about how to push back against the Ukraine war. In particular, there's danger that nuclear weapons could be used in the Ukraine war. And also when it comes to China, we have a serious situation where we have a huge ideological campaign in the United States to demonize China. We're coming down on China on, trade, chips, everything. It's not just Taiwan, it's not just Xinjiang. We're getting into a civilizational confrontation, and that is so dangerous. Corporate campaigns. Here in Mass, we have the Raytheon Nuclear Weapons Campaign. It seeks to use Raytheon's presence here to call attention to the danger of nuclear weapons, to point out that nuclear weapons are not somewhere over there. They're here in our state, and the people that design them are in Cambridge, Massachusetts. That's where the guidance systems for the Trident missile is designed. It's like 2 blocks from MIT. And to end Raytheon's production of these weapons of mass destruction, Raytheon is a major contractor. And of course, we can do the same with Lockheed. We can do the same with Northrop and the other major military contractors. There's a form here to get involved in the Raytheon Nuclear Weapons Campaign. And there's also a War Industries Resistance Network, which is a national coalition of local groups that are pushing back against corporations that are part of the war industries. And that War Industries Network has regular webinars on different aspects. In fact, they are presenting Medea to talk about her Ukraine book pretty soon. So join that network. That's my spiel.
All right.
Jonathan, I'm over to you for.
I was just wondering if we have a moment. If
we can take a few quick.
Jonathan,
take a few questions.
We have a moment so we could share the Peace in Ukraine website, because I think people would be interested.
And I think we have a few minutes for questions, either or things we want to add to any of the speakers. Cole ended with.
I was just wondering if we could share the website for a minute. Here we go. Thank you. So this is our Peace in Ukraine website. As I mentioned, Code Pink launched this coalition shortly after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And on our steering committee, we have representatives from MAPA, from Code Pink, World Beyond War, Roots Action, Veterans for Peace, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Democratic Socialists of America. And we have, monthly meetings twice a month, and we're in the midst of weeks of action. If we can just scroll, you can visit the peaceinukraine.org website, and you can see all the different actions that are being planned in different cities to say, negotiate, don't escalate, money for climate and healthcare, housing, not endless war, not weapons for Ukraine. And Cole, if we can go to, the resource page, we can show them what's available here. We can click on resources. Yeah. So for example, if you want to invite, back up. If you want to invite a Medea to your hometown or city to visit, this is the page where you can get in touch. Okay. If we go back, we can look at the talking, keep going forward actually. The talking points, statements, petitions, and more. So here, let's say you're tabling and you need a petition. You would go here to the resources section of the Peace in Ukraine website. Let's say you're just not sure how to respond to some of these statements people make. We have how to respond, things that you can say. We have flyers you can print out. We have resolutions you can introduce to your union, to your church group, whoever. And anyway, maybe we can take a look at the banners. We have some banners. Yeah, we can, yeah, just hold it there for a minute. Great. So by all means, you can download the banner. You can take it to your local print shop. Unionbuttons.com will put a bug on it if you want a union bug. And we have buttons. Let's take a look at the buttons too. Yeah, ceasefire in Ukraine. So what do you do with these? Well, you can take them to a print shop again or unionbuttons.com and they will print it out for you. So that's our peaceinukraine.org website. If you want to get, in the weeds and help us spread the message, we invite you to sign up. And if we can just go back to the homepage, I'll show you how you can sign up. So you go back to the homepage. There we go. And you scroll down just a little bit. It says, oops, stop, back up a little bit, please. Okay. So you see where it says sign up here, join us as we build, blah, 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 sign up here. Yeah.
Okay.
And you fill that out and then you're a member. Okay. Thank you, Cole. So now's a great time to take some questions and have a discussion.
Well, we got a couple more minutes. I think if people want to throw questions or comments to Rev Liz or Sandy, or Medea or Cole, we have a couple of minutes. We're not going to have any closing statements. We will just close. So,
and we're closing at what time?
Hand, so I guess you have to put yourself in the chat.
Okay, and just to be clear, we're closing at what time?
6.
Okay.
6.
We got 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay.
On the outside, yeah.
Okay, so any questions?
Well, maybe do the raise hand. Click reaction.
Raise hands. Okay, Cole, can you call on people, please?
Yes. So click where it says reactions, click raise hand if you wish to speak.
Then your image moves into the field. Or it does on my computer anyway.
Break the ice, Jonathan. Ask the first question.
Well, I was just going to say that, where there, like Reverend Liz pointed out, that the Poor People's Campaign has chapters in many, many states. If you're not in touch with your Poor People's Campaign, they're very friendly, right? It's a fusion campaign. There's no, you don't have to be formally voted into the coalition. Get in touch with them. I didn't sit in on the nurses and the healthcare, but one of the things that, one of the roots of our Fund Healthcare Not Warfare campaign is that nurses are organized by state in every state in the union. Public health workers are organized into state public health associations in every state in the United States. They're all members of the American Public Health Association. So there's an avenue there to contact them and say, we'll support your call for Medicaid for all. We'd like you to support our call for financing it by cutting the budget, right? So these are opportunities that are low hanging fruits, easy to do, and we need people to do it.
So we got a question in the chat that I'm going to direct to Medea from Lynn Knudsen. Medea, please tell me how we can deal with Putin, who will destroy Ukraine and all of Europe if we don't stop him.
Well, I think the destruction is going on every day and will go on as long as the war goes on. And so the way to stop the destruction is to stop the war. And the way to stop the war is not by pouring more and more weapons in, but is to go to negotiations. That's the only thing that will stop the killing and put us on track to be able to rebuild Ukraine and try to create this European security architecture that will protect all the countries in Europe, as well as recognize the legitimate security concerns that Russia has.
Okay, one more from Eva Mosley. Eva, go ahead. You have to unmute first, though.
Well, I'm really old. I've been in various movements in the past. I'm not up to much now. But I was just thinking, we used to have such wonderful songs. And I think we need a song about nuclear weapons. So those of you who know composers or guitarists, maybe, I mean,
I think
they were really helpful.
right. Why don't we, that's a note to close on. Eva is one of our staunchest and longest supporters and peace activists. Music is so important. The Poor People's Campaign has a whole raft of very, very inspiring videos. And I think that at the next, one of our next conferences, we should open and close with one of those uplifting, give peace a chance, and gonna take back what the rich man took from my house. Well, I'm gonna. It's been wonderful to having you all here. I've been very impressed that people hung in so long. It's a long afternoon with many sessions, but our troops are seasoned and they're serious, and we just got to keep planning, keep working, keep analyzing what's actually going on out there. And we know that most Americans are being hurt by the current policies of the government. And I'm pretty sure that if the more we do to make that clear to them, they themselves will find ways to rise up. So thank you again, and see you at the next conference. Right.
And I'm going to take the liberty of ending on the Snake River song that we played during the breakout or during the break. It's got a lot of lyrics, so it's not exactly the kind of anthem that Eva was wishing for, but still I thought it was pretty cute. So let's close out on this, and
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Says no boundaries can make them own them, buy them, sell them, take them, and test them, threaten with them, move them. If you got the weapons, manufacture stockpile like position proof, should be on the no matter what the mission is on the phone. Something to say, lose the nuclear weapons, get them out of the way. Someone get the children, the papa and the mom, got the big bad new bombs. You forgot about them, they went away. No way, still here. Across the stage, in the new arms race. Hey, Uncle Sam, we got news for you. The world got a new band and voted it. Don't need to and to know the right thing to do. The politicians say, well, the old man hair all gone, all gray. As you think, get the hell out of the way, man. Tell me, it's so silent. On the tents, not best, double red balls, just one of them. Ain't no fantastic flying over you. That ain't how it ought to be. And shine up with friends and Uncle Sam, not to mention Israel, that a little secret. Hush, hush, the band's coming for you. 9 nations thinking struck, set the world straight to hell. Turn smoke and ashes, everything we can see. Says this is how it has to be.
All right. Peace. Have a good weekend.